Hello class, I hope you've gotten off to a good start looking at the syllabus and all of our schedule. This video will talk about the week 1 information, so I'm going to go to our modules. As you complete information in modules, you can collapse them, so if you're done with that you can get it out of your way. Now in week 1 I'm going to grab the PowerPoint, and I know my screen looks a little bit different than yours, but it should be very similar. I'm going to get the PowerPoint from our problem solving book, and that book is what is our main textbook. Sorry, my computer can be a little slow saving things. There it goes. And of course you can just look at the PowerPoint inline on Canvas if you like, but I went ahead and downloaded it for us. As I mentioned, our problem solving and decision making book is our primary textbook. The projects book has step-by-step instructions for some projects that we'll be doing and gives us access to SAM and all of the training material available through SAM. And we're going to use those tools to assist in our problem solving and decision making. So instead of having a class where we just talk about using Word and do step-by-step functionalities of Word, we'll be using Word to help solve problems and do some critical thinking. So for our first part of our book, we want to look at problem solving and analyzing problems, talk about problem owners and stakeholders, and look at developing some effective statements, finding causes, simplifying problems, and then in week 2, we're talking about risks and avoiding traps. As a student, it may seem to you as though you're not a problem solver, but you are a problem solver. You figure out ways to make it to class and get your homework done and plan things and get all of the things done in your life that you need to do. And sometimes you have some problems pop up. When you're in the workplace, as a professional, you'll be highly valued if you help solve problems. You've always heard those stories about people who create problems. In the workplace, we love people who solve problems and help us with that. So if you can help identify, define, and solve problems, you'll be a valued member of your organization. So you want to identify yourself in your company as a problem solver, and you can do that by beginning to recognize problems. Always think about how you could solve a problem with your gut feelings. What's your first reaction? Sometimes we have to throw some solutions out quickly, and we might need to use our intuition to do that. And then you also need to be able to use a systematic approach, step-by-step analyzing the problem, its symptoms, and possible solutions. And then finally you'll be able to make decisions off of all of this information. So this gives us a step-by-step approach to problem solving. Identify the problem, gather information, clarify the problem, consider some solutions, select the best option, and make a decision and monitor the solution. In Objective 2, mention that companies really rely on employees to identify problems and help solve them. And before we can solve problems, we really need to know what they are. So defining the real problem is a first milestone. So as you're analyzing problems, the end of each objective in our textbook has a nice summary of guideline do's and guideline don'ts. So we want to make sure we're looking for deficiencies. So in our textbook, our example case study says that we're working for a travel agency and that reservations are way down, and we're trying to help them analyze this problem and figure out what to do about it. So as part of our problem solving, we're going to interview people and gather data, like people that work for the travel agencies are previous customers, if they filled out surveys for us, that's great. We can use those surveys to gather data. So we're going to do as much observing as we possibly can. And we want to be really careful anytime we're talking about problems to be talking about the problem in general and not who is responsible for the problem, because people can get very defensive when we're talking about making change, even if it's for the better. So we always want to be careful to talk about what and not who. And we want to have a reality check. Does it make sense in the light of the data that you've gathered to go along with the solution that you're thinking of or that your intuition suggested? We always want to be comparing reality to what we are thinking and make sure they're the same. Now we have to always be considering the problem owners. So the problem owners and the stakeholders could be the company management or the company employees, anybody who's affected basically by that problem. So we have to be aware of their stake in this problem. Some stakeholders may be people that are profiting from a situation, and we need to be aware of that situation. We want to recognize these stakeholders, gather their opinions, ask them for what they think, but always keep in mind what their relationship is to this problem. We're going to talk to those stakeholders and communicate clearly about what we're working on, and we're going to carefully analyze all the data that we get so that we can provide choices and promote the solution that we feel is the best. Again, we want to be careful to not become emotionally attached to our solution. Our solution is based on logical decision making, and it's a fact-based solution. So we can tend to be emotionally attached to all the work that we've done, and we want to keep a logical profile as we're thinking about this. We always want to provide choices. Some really smart people that I've talked to recently about decision making mentioned that whenever they're talking to their supervisor, they always offer their supervisor two choices. Would you like to do A or B? And that way, the supervisor doesn't feel like they're being told what to do, and it gives them some options to consider, and it might even promote further discussion. So just a great plan. Always think of providing choices. And remember, a lot of these troubleshooting and problem solving tips we can apply to our personal lives. So my husband is a little bit more considerate when he's offered choices instead of ultimatums, aren't we all? Now we want to be able to develop effective problem statements, and this is just a really clear description of the problem and the effect we should get from a solution. So we want to make sure our problem statement is only describing a single problem, and sometimes we might think that it is and then have to further refine that as we find out additional information. We want to include this problem statement in our proposals, progress reports, and our discussions. It's kind of like our ad campaign for this problem, and we want to keep it in the forefront. Our problem statement guidelines suggest that we want to describe the ideal situation. The world will be perfect if this problem can be solved. We want to briefly summarize it, identify some of the symptoms of it, look at the size and scope and identify the consequences, and explain any other research or investigation that you may pursue. So for many years we've had a traffic problem in Springfield. If you drive here a lot, you know that we can have a lot of traffic, but it's greatly improved, and there are several things that the city has done over the years to improve the situation. Excuse me, like add additional left turn lanes, those crazy backwards things that we do as we get on the highway that have won all those awards. These things took a long time to get solved, and people had to identify these problems and come up with problem statements and keep this issue at the forefront. It was causing people to not want to live in our city because it was so bad and so congested. So this problem and this problem-solving effort has been ongoing, and it's had a really good resolution. So these effective problem statements can be very, very important and affect many people's lives. The person who worked heavily with the city on that knew that it was important, but they've really improved a lot of things. Now, as we look at our problem, one of our first steps in problem solving is determining the causes. And we want to make sure that we're not overlooking the root cause. And the root cause is, of course, that one at the root, the very basic problem that's causing this issue. Complex situations usually have some interrelated problems, so we might have to be looking at some different causes. And we can perform a root cause analysis, a study that determines the real basis for the problems. And if you want to look at some analyzing of these situations, be sure to look at the practice problems at the end of each objective in your textbook, because they're pretty short and they walk you through step by step, like how you would create some of these items. In our text, they also show you a cause and effect diagram that's very helpful, where we have our root cause across the center and then some different cause problems pointing to that so that we can identify that relationship visually. So in our determining causes objective, we want to be sure that we're keeping symptoms separate from causes. It may seem like the symptom is a cause, so we have to be careful to separate those. And we're going to be looking for more than one cause. Usually problems don't have just one cause. If they do, great. We want to consider the cost. And the cost means, is it going to cost more to solve this problem than it would to fix some of the symptoms so that we sort of had a resolution? Because that's an option too. We want to use the 5 whys technique, where we just say why, keep being annoying that way, so that we can find out why this problem is occurring. So lots of different things we can do. And then here's our cause and effect diagram. Yay! Then we're going to simplify the complex problems. Excuse me, complex problems have no boundaries, no single solution. They involve multiple stakeholders with competing agendas, and they consist of smaller sub-problems that affect each other. So we have some complication going on. We want to always identify the major symptoms, consider each problem individually, rank the sub-problems, look for interdependencies, and delegate sub-problems. Risks we'll start with on our next week, so be sure to read through this short textbook. It doesn't take you very much time, and as I mentioned, do some of the projects at the end of each objective. They're short little practice activities. You do have one of those practice activities that's due this week, so be sure you're looking at your calendar on Canvas, and make sure that you're keeping up with what's going on through your modules. So have a great day. Thanks.